Greetings, I'm Michael O'Connor, and thanks for joining me at the well. With me today is a special guest, Tom Gullickson. Tom, thanks for joining me today.
Thank you for having me.
One of the things that our youth needs today are good role models. And unfortunately, that's sorely lacking in some segments of our population. I dare say in most segments of our population. And Tom is involved in the ministry here, and I wanted to bring him in and just recognize what he is doing right now, and then also talk about the role of a role model and what you and Tom and I can do together to help the situation. So, Tom, a little bit about what you're doing down in Kankakee.
Oh, for 40 years, I've been a small businessman, and I went and worked with high schools and athletics because that was my background. And in the past year or so, I got involved with Kankakee School District 111 and working with the young males and the girls in junior high. And me being 70 years old, that's quite a culture shock, just the way to learn a whole new language.
Oh, yeah.
But one thing I remember the great motivational speaker, Zig Ziglar. And one of the things I love working with you so much is he's made the comment that the children are not 100% of our population, but they are 100% of our future.
Ah, wow.
And I
That's
thought,
quite a statement.
you know what? That says it all right there.
So that's your motivation, really.
So, right. And faith.
Mm-hmm.
Some of the kids we work with have tough situations, and faith in God is the thing that's going to pull them through.
So, what are some of their challenges? I mean, that would keep them from, having a relationship with God, or
Well, I'll give you a good, well,
I know that's a tough question.
Leadership.
Okay.
I think faith, with those of us who are lucky enough to grow up in a home with parents that brought us into the faith,
Right.
they don't have that.
No exposure to it.
They don't have the exposure. There's a lot of parents in District 1, awesome. And the kids are really good there, and there's some smart kids. They just, how do you say, some of them just haven't been outside of Kankakee County.
This is the world that they've known, and
this is the world they've known.
That's all they've known.
That's all they've known. And so one of our things we're doing over there is we're trying to open the world up to them so they can see that there's a big world out there. And if you make the right choices, gosh, anything can happen. So we're introducing them to successful people who have overcome great obstacles, that were in situations like some of those kids are. And it's been a really, it's a trying thing in the sense of it's easy for people our age to get frustrated because we see it.
Mm-hmm.
All you got to do is this.
Yes.
Well, at that age, they don't see it that way.
It sounds like you're showing them a path forward.
Everybody who works in that building is working on that, showing them that I'm okay, you're okay. Now let's start from here. We're not the enemy. We're here to go. And that takes some adjustment for an adult because you got to bend and weave, and you may alter your beliefs a little bit or how you react to things because your reaction is going to cause other reactions that may be negative.
So you give them hope. You give them kind of a path forward.
Yes.
And when it comes to role model, how do you do that? What are some of the things that you role model? I'll just talk about here. A good role model has certain qualities. And as I go through any one of these, stop me and just say, that's something what I do.
Yes.
So one of them is authenticity. They walk the walk, not just talk the talk.
That's a great point you make right there, because kids can read you in a heartbeat. They know if you're faking. If you're not being genuine, they know. It's like a dog can smell a rat in the garbage. Okay, and you're caught then. So if you're not genuine, game's over.
Yeah, you can't get that back.
No, and it requires that the sincere, teaching them how to be kind to one another. Because kids nowadays with social media, it creates so much angst and weird things in relationships.
Another trait is positivity, being positive and optimistic.
Every day, in most of the places I've worked, I had a small business for years, but and the side I coached in different high
Right.
schools. I think I've coached at every high school in this area.
Tom's a great athlete. He used to be a football player for University of Notre Dame. A lot of people may not know that, but
That was about 55 years ago, before they had face masks. Yes.
before they had face masks, the leather helmets.
Yes,
Yeah,
yes,
okay.
yes. And when you whine, they just said, "Suck it up."
Yeah, right.
Yes.
But that positivity is important.
The positivity is important. Now, where does that come from? How has it helped me and where I'm doing now? Number one, I had grandmothers who were strong in the faith, mothers, fathers, and I was blessed to go to schools where they had great men leaders
Yeah.
that were mentors to us,
Mm.
and they stressed the right way, and they wouldn't allow you to go the wrong way. And so that was very influential.
Are you teaching anything about the faith, or just how to live a good life? I mean, how do you deal with these people who weren't exposed to any faith? I mean, it's
Well, you'll be surprised, a lot of the kids are.
okay.
The other day I was faking, and I was in a class, and I shut my eyes for a couple seconds, and I was kind of faking like I was sleeping to see how they would act. And I just shut my eyes. This is, as you get older and wiser, you can be more devious. So I shut my eyes, and I heard him say, "Hey, the old guy's sleeping." I opened my eyes, and they said, "No, I wasn't sleeping." They said, "Yeah, you were." I said, "No." And they said, "What were you doing?" I said, "I was praying for you guys." And they said, "You were praying?" I go to church on Sunday with my grandma. I do this. All of a sudden,
Wow.
it went from being foolish junior
Yeah.
high kids to being, oh, okay.
And it's okay to talk about it, right?
It's okay to talk about it.
Nice.
It's okay to talk about it.
Another trait is humility, being humble and don't boast about your knowledge.
Yeah, that is as the great Walter Payton, who played for the Chicago Bears, would say, when you're good, you got to tell people, and when you're great, they tell you. So that's what I tell a lot of the young kids today, because they're great in their minds.
Yeah.
So guys, you don't worry. If you're really great, they'll tell you. You'll know. But no, the humility is a big thing.
You used the word kindness before too.
Oh,
That's a
yes.
huge element of being a good mentor, being kind and caring, because you're not there just to be there.
No.
They if they know you really care about them, that's
Right.
got to touch them.
It does. It does. And there's no question. And I've been in a lot of different schools, okay? In the Chicago CPS, where we're in a school where we had 5 different gangs. And, you see a lot of different stuff.
Mm-hmm.
You see demonic possession sometimes, as weird as that may seem to some people. But once you see or been in that situation, you realize that
That's what it is.
if there is a God, there is evil.
Yeah.
But so what are we there for to do? Between you and I, we're there to save souls. And if we can get them to understand that there's a higher power in the world that's in charge of all this, and whatever his plan is going to be, that's going to be the plan I'm going to follow, then we win. And they win, I should say. They win. And then it helps old sinners like me maybe get a pass and go up to the pearly gates and might let me in, maybe.
And I think when the role of a mentor comes into play, is could be easy for some people to say, "I am better than you.
Mm-hmm.
I am good, and you aren't there, and let me tell you how to do it."
Right.
So one of the basics attributes would be respectful of them and meet them where they're at.
Be respectful and expect that you're going to have to earn their respect.
Right.
They're not going to give it to you just because you showed up and you're the instructor or the leader in the class. No. But positivity and a good, every day, talk to them, because adults aren't talking to them usually. Okay. I see a lot of parents are so busy now too. We got financial obligations. They got this club, that club, that club. And the greatest thing you can give your child is your time. That's the most challenging thing for a lot of adults our age I talk to.
Isn't that the truth?
That's a challenge. How do I fit enough time to spend quality time with my kids?
I guess it rolls right into the final question I have of you is, for the people who are listening now, who have children, who have grandchildren,
Yes.
What are 1 or 2 things that are really critical that they should be doing?
Well, I'm not here to tell anybody what to do. I can tell you what I'm doing now. When I sit down, I have 10 grandchildren who are from sophomore in high school down to a year old. So whenever I'm with them now, I talk about God. I never knew my grandfathers. They were all dead before I was born.
Me too.
And my dad was a Lutheran. And he just would always say, he converted to Catholicism, but would always say, oh, this is the real, you got to go to church, you got to do this. And so we said, oh, okay.
Okay.
But it was our moms and grandmas that really
Yeah.
had to sit and say in the rosary at 4 o'clock in the afternoon, had to leave the ball field, and why are we doing this? We're in the middle of the game. But so we were raised with that wonderful, loving, nurturing thing, which was a grace from above for me. Now, do all kids have that? No. And that's where I think us folks who have faith need to step up and share that faith with these kids and say, I was like you guys. Yeah, I grew up in East Joliet, and hey, half the guys I grew up with are deceased or they're in prison. Okay, it was a tough area. So I know what some of you guys are dealing with.
You can relate to them.
But that doesn't mean that's not a reason to fail. Because sometimes they say, well, I have all these things wrong, so I'm going to be that too. And we're there to say, no, you don't have to be.
Have you any, you've been doing this for a while, any success stories that you're really proud of? I mean, that helps you saying, okay, this is, I'm doing some good here, because it can be overwhelming, I'm sure.
Oh, it's a great question. And to me, what is really successful to somebody else may not be.
Yeah.
Okay. So as I coached for 40 years in high school and small college, and I like to say I was the only Catholic that Olivet ever hired to help coach football, but that's, we broke the ice there. That was a big deal too.
Yeah.
That every child is a child of God. And that's how the priests who have influenced me and other lay people that are in the faith have influenced me that they are. No matter how tough that exterior is or how bad it looks, somewhere in there's a voice of God. So let's find it, because that will bring them, it'll bring you peace, it'll bring you hope, it'll bring love in your life. And with those three things, and with that, that you're going to work, and your work is going to be devoted to Jesus Christ. So you're working for God. So now I have a purpose. Yeah. So I don't have to answer the question. I just have to know, what did God say to do in this situation?
Have you ever met people in their 20s, 30s, 40s that you had touched when they were younger and reconnected with them?
Yes. I'll tell you, Lee, L-E-E, Lee. Lee, I was coaching at one of the local high schools, and Lee was a student there, and Lee never spoke, quiet as can be. Well, when he got out of high school one day, he came and he was looking for a job. So I hired him because I remember he was a decent kid. And Lee was quiet, and he always showed up to work on time. He always did this, and he listened and he learned. Now, 25 years go by. Lee's moved on. I said, this isn't where you want to end up.
Yeah.
You don't want to be busting tires your whole life.
Right.
Okay, you're a smart guy. You got more to do. I run into him 25 years later at the grocery store. He comes up to me. He's a young American black kid, wonderful young man. He comes up to me and he says, Mr. Gullickson, Mr. G, remember me? I go, look, I go, Lee? He goes, yeah. He goes, how you been? And he's talking now like he's never talked. He's white. He's just full of life.
Wow.
And he said, hey, I just wanted to tell you something. I'm so glad I ran into you. I said, what are you doing now? He said, I'm the top nurse's assistant up at the VA.
Holy moly.
I says, no kidding. He goes, oh yeah, I got a great job. And all that stuff that you said to me when I was younger, it was all true. And I listened to what you said, and I believed it.
Oh my God.
He said, and this is where I got this kind of great situation now.
That one thing can just make it all worth it, can it?
So to me, that was like,
role models can inspire kids to learn, to overcome obstacles, and understand that positive values can be lived each and every day. Tom, thanks for sharing your stories.
Well, thank you for the work you're doing with the well, and keep up the good work with your children out there. Love your children. Find ways to spend time with them, and talk about their faith.
Don't be afraid to mention God.
Don't be afraid. Talk about God with them. I don't pound them over the head like,
right.
But be genuine.
Yeah.
Tell them about the love in your heart and the love when you were in love with your spouse and created this beautiful child.
Yeah.
Share all those things with them, because that gives them a purpose in life then.
Yeah.
And if they have a purpose, they have a chance. And God's faith provides that purpose.
Thanks, Tom. Keep listening. Keep praying. God bless.
God bless you all.